Welcome to the Run for God Run Club, where you will find God in a runner's space.
Welcome to the Run for God Run Club. This is your one stop each week to be motivated and inspired to get off the couch and onto the running trail where you can, in turn, inspire others to do the same. Let's learn, laugh, and running together, giving God the glory for what we are able to do in His name. Amen. I am your running host, Dean Thompson. Hey, let's take a little time from our busy schedules. We get really hectic, so let's take a little bit of time to do something we enjoy, to talk about running and faith. And of course, joining me once again, Run for God founder Mitchell Hollis.
Thanks for having me, Dean. Man, I'm a little bit mad at myself this morning.
Are you?
Yep.
Uh-oh.
You know, I texted you and asked if we could push this back about 30 minutes. And
yeah.
The reason is there was dew on the ground this morning, and it's about that time to get my next fertilizer on the ground. So I wanted to do that while the dew was, because you know you can see your tracks where you've been when the dew's on the ground.
Yeah.
And I went out there and spread fertilizer, and I get back, and this is typical me. I get back and I start reading the label of the fertilizer after I put it down, and it says, don't put down on newly planted grass. Well, about a month ago, I planted some new grass right out here beside the building, and so I was on the phone with my landscape guy saying, did I just kill this stuff? And he said, no, probably not. But he said, you know, next time read the label.
Yeah.
Kind of reprimanded me a little bit, but that's typical me.
Well, I've done something similar if it makes you feel any better. I remember one time the particular grass that I have in my yard that's predominant. My yard's not fancy or anything. I have multiple grasses in my yard, but one time I put a combination fertilizer and weed killer on my grass, and then I found out that particular kind of grass, you shouldn't do that.
Is weeds.
Well, no, it's not weeds. It's just that grass doesn't tolerate the fertilizer weed, and it really... It did a number. It took years for that grass to come back.
Wow.
Yeah.
I hope that don't happen to me.
No, me too.
Well, let's talk about this week's sponsor. Again, if you are a business out there and you would like for Run for God to support what you do, and in turn you can support what we do here at Run for God, send an email to runlanehollis@gmail.com. He'll get you all the information. But this week's sponsor is Hank's Carpet and Flooring. Hank's is your one-stop shop for all of your flooring needs. Hank stocks a huge selection of name brand flooring, carpet, luxury vinyl plank, also known as LVP, waterproof flooring, and the exclusive Lola Pate area rug collection. Voted North Georgia's best at the best 8 straight years and the People's Choice winner for the past 2. Great flooring, great prices. Why shop anywhere else? Visit Hank's Carpet and Flooring giant showroom at hankscarpet.com for red hot deals. Again, great group of people over there, supported us for a long time. We can't thank them enough. So if you're in the market for floor covering, really anywhere in the world, they ship everywhere. So give them a call and ask for Hank.
Yeah.
You might get him.
Yeah. That luxury vinyl plank has been great. We put it in our basement.
It's popular.
Oh, it's so good for a basement.
A lot of people are using that now. I tell you what, I mean, carpet, we're in the carpet capital of the world here in Dalton. And LVP is really giving carpet a run for its money, which is kind of peculiar. But yeah, I'm a carpet guy. I know you are. I like the comfort, the homey feel of carpet. So I like accent LVP and hardwood and things like that, but I don't like whole rooms.
Yeah.
That's just my preference.
Yeah. Well, it's quiet. Carpet's quieter. That's what I like about carpet.
And you know me, I'm an acoustics person.
Yep.
If it's loud and echoey, I can't hear you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we had a Facebook post from last week that I really liked, and it comes from Countdown Mary Priolo. And this is what she wrote. It's all about priorities. I ain't gonna lie. This last week was tough. Had a lot of things competing for my attention. And don't get me wrong, I normally juggle a lot, but this week, yowzers. I am really good at picking and choosing my priorities and my battles. As a working wife, mom, caretaker, volunteer, servant, runner, you name it, fitting all the pieces of the puzzle together to make time and energy for everything is one of God's greatest gifts to me. And sometimes it is hard to work it all out. I'm not currently training for any specific race as as I plan on picking back up with the Run for God training plan for the half marathon leg. But I have been trying to get in 3 to 4 runs per week, mixing up easy runs with some speed work, with some long runs, keeping pace with where I was at the end of this past Couch to Marathon plan. Whatever time my body and God allows for. I have made running a priority in my life, priority for my health, priority for my mental state, priority for my spirit. The runs I run are intentional encounters with God, a time I can turn all other stuff off, leave the cares of the world behind, and just be one with Him. And sometimes even this priority gets pushed to the back of the line like it did this week. If you're somewhere in the middle of this year's challenge or run because it's your happy place and you find you're falling behind or can't get it to the top of your list, know that you're not alone. Life is hard. Living is hard. Working is hard. Family is hard. Stress is hard. Eating right is hard. Sometimes sleep is hard. Running, yes, running is hard. Take a deep breath, quiet your mind, feel your heartbeat, listen to your soul, lace up your shoes, and just go. Spend time on the road, trail, or treadmill. Spend time with Him, and He will help you set your priorities. It won't always be running. It won't always be family. It won't always be work or clubs or church or friends. Listen to Him, and it will be what it will be. This week, other priorities won out, but I was able to get 1 run in early Saturday morning. For this hour and a half, my body was able, my mind was willing, and my soul was well, and it felt good. Let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interests of others. Philippians 2:4.
Wow.
Isn't that a great post?
Yeah.
So
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah.
We don't often say what she said a lot. Most of the time we internalize that, but it's encouraging to see that we aren't alone, because I deal with that same thing. You deal with that same thing, but it's kind of one of those things that many times the evil one will make us think, well, you're the only one dealing with this stuff. No, we pretty much all are.
Yeah. And that is a good thing to know. And the other thing that she does here that I really like is that she just it's kind of like she knows it derailed her, but it's not going to derail her future. So many times people get derailed and then they give up because they got derailed one time.
They feel like they've ruined it.
Yeah.
Or they've messed up, and that's just not the case. It's a temporary setback.
Yeah.
And temporary is the key word.
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid and my father and I used to do model railroading. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes it's hard to get the track just right. And sometimes you have these areas where, the train just will derail. Mm-hmm. And the truth is that's kind of the way we are in life. It's real, but it's real easy to go over there and pick up that train and just put it back on that track.
Yeah.
And sometimes we act like, oh, well, it came off the track. I can't put it back on the track. And all we have to do is go put it back on the track.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like spreading fertilizer where you're not supposed to spread fertilizer. Yeah. I can either just let it be what it is, or I can take steps right now to try to fix it, to water it, to mow it, to do whatever, be proactive and get things back on track. But so many times we think, I've ruined it, and just quit mowing the yard for the next year, and things get into disrepair when you do that. But if you can take steps to mitigate any setbacks and move forward, and many times those will be lessons. I will never do what I did this morning again.
Yeah.
Promise. It'll never happen again. But that's where God shows us these lessons many times, is when we mess up or when we fall behind or when we do whatever. Those are the times when we can learn and move forward.
And you can find ways to get around some of those things that do derail us sometimes. For example, the reason why I run every day, I just love to run. But other than that, one of the reasons that I run every day is because I know how I am. Yeah. Because I'll let that 1 run turn into 2, then 3. And I know that's how I am, right? Sure. So if I run every day, that never happens. Yeah. So I never get there. All right. We had a trivia question from last week, and that trivia question was this. Name the popular book on running that was authored in 1977 and is credited with starting the running boom in the United States. And who wrote it? Did you know this one?
I did. I think I gave you the initials last week. I don't know how I knew it because I've never read it, But I guess somehow the way you phrased the question, maybe it was 1977. I don't know. It just stuck out to me when you said it. So I've never read it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I have the book, or I had the book. I don't know if I must have loaned it out because I was looking for it on my shelf and I can't find it. I don't know what's happened to it. I have his second book, but I don't have his first book.
And I have it to me, did you? I'm looking over there at the bookshelf. I don't think you loaned it to me.
And I have a puzzle book too that Jim Fixx also wrote. The guy's name is Jim Fixx. The book is called The Complete Book of Running. And Jim Fixx was really the first person to look at running and go, you know what, this running is really good for us, and to spell out all of those benefits of running. Prior to this, people knew that running was good for you, but if you weren't good at running, it wasn't worth doing.
I know why I remember this book, because he wrote The Complete Book of Running, which should be a hard stop, period.
Yep.
But he came out with the next book that was what?
The second book of running.
The second book, yeah. So it's like the first one wasn't complete, Jim.
Yeah.
So we had to come out with that. We've talked about that on this podcast, I guess, because that's why it stuck out to me.
Yeah, yeah. And he just figured, he wrote that complete book of running, and then he realized there's other things. Mm-hmm. There's other things that I missed, or things changed. Yeah. And so, as they always do, there is no such thing as finality. Of course, my favorite book, if you're going to read one book and you got time and you like to read, because you better like to read this book, the book's called Lore of Running. You'll learn everything you'll ever want to know about running if you ever read Lore of Running by Tim Noakes. But the Complete Book of Running is still pretty applicable today. Yeah. I mean, a lot of the things that he talked about, really, they were leading edge back then, and it came at a great time because Frank Shorter won the Olympic marathon in 1972. Mm-hmm. Which a lot of people started to run after that. They started to become competitive. They wanted to run marathons and those kinds of things, and that led to the initial running boom. And then, of course, in 1976, he finished second in the marathon to a guy that we know now was clearly doping. He should have had 2 gold medals, but this book was written in 1977. So we had all those people who had started running. So running was becoming more popular. And then Jim Fixx comes out and says, not only is running cool, but it's really, really good for you in all these great ways. Mm-hmm. The ironic thing about Jim Fixx is how he died. So Jim Fixx died when he was 52 years old while he was running in the park of heart disease. Right. He had a heart attack. And his family had a history of it. His father actually died, I think, at like 43 years old.
Oh, wow.
But from the same thing. I mean, he had his family history was really, really bad for heart problems. And he just thought running was taking care of everything. And that was kind of his mindset. And obviously, it was not.
Right.
And so, as good as running is for us, we have to realize that
you still got to get that yearly checkup.
Yep.
You still got to stay on top of things.
Still got to, and especially if you have a history or a family history of these kinds of things. So I've got a family history of diabetes, for example, and it's important for me to everyone. I want to make sure I continue to check and make sure that I'm good from that standpoint.
Because you would think that running every day would be the fix for diabetes.
Right.
But you still got to check.
Yeah. That's 100%.
Moral of the story is get that annual physical.
That is correct. So Jim Fixx, Frank Shorter, two guys who really were super instrumental in the running boom.
All right, Dean, we're gonna talk about 2 things just a second. One is we're working on a big project. We're not gonna let the cat out of the bag about this big project, but it's a big project.
Yep.
You're actually gonna start helping some later this week on it. I've been working on it for a month or 2 now, and we're just so excited about it. It's gonna be a game changer for your experience in Run Club. So if you're not already a member of Run Club, go ahead and get signed up because you're not going to want to miss what's coming. We've been listening to everybody's feedback, since we made the transition to Run Club from the way Run for God was, which was mainly class driven and not club driven. There's been some things that have fallen by the wayside. We didn't bring completely everything on board when we came, and it's because really we just didn't know how. We were in the middle of a pandemic. We were just trying to do the best we could. Well, we've sat down and really thought about, okay, what can we bring from the old platform of Run for God to the Run Club platform to make it even better. And we've listened, and we're making some big changes, and we're really excited about it. We'll be letting you know more as the weeks and months go on. But it's exciting. It's really, really exciting. But also today, this is the 23rd of May. Today is when the USA shirts go on sale, and we've added a bonus this year. So the USA shirts go on sale. They're on sale for 3 weeks. This is the only 3 weeks that the USA shirts are on sale. It's the American flag USA Run for God gear. But when you do that, we've got some that you got it on. You've got it on right now. Wow, did you plan that?
I did.
So yeah, the USA on the back. Dean's modeling it for you. If you're listening to the podcast, go watch it on YouTube. Anyway, so if you buy a Run for God USA tee, the once a year tee, you're gonna get a Run for God, a standard Run for God shirt for free. We have a lot of closeout Run for God gear that we need to move. So we're going to do buy one, get one free. You buy the USA shirt, you get a standard Run for God shirt for free.
Man, what a deal.
Incredible deal. We will probably never do that again, because once these closeouts are gone, they're gone. We've got many colors. We are limited on some sizes and colors, so you may have to go through and pick what you want, but we do have plenty of them. So from now, for the next 3 weeks, the Run for God USA gear is on sale. And if you do it during this 3 weeks, you get not only the USA shirt, and you'll get it in time for the 4th of July. This is going to be kind of our big Memorial Day push. You'll get the USA shirt in time for 4th of July, and you'll get your Run for God standard shirt. Well, I say standard. I shouldn't call it standard. It's the staple of Run for God. Yeah. I mean, it is the Run for God tee that you'll get absolutely free. So go to runforgod.com, check it out, and get yours ordered.
That's pretty cool. That's a pretty good deal.
If your teen is into rock and metal music that makes your ears bleed and your grandmother clutch her pearls, we can help. If your spouse yearns for music from the old days and wants to relive the music of their glory years, we can handle that. If you need a break from the day to spend time with God and recognize His goodness, we'd love to be a part of that. Whether it's rock and metal, classic songs from decades past, or heartfelt worship music, J Radio has you covered. Sign up for an account at jradio.com and download the app in your app store to start listening for free today.
All right, we're back, and if you're not listening on Thursday nights, you need to tune in on Thursday nights. I think we have a lot of fun on Thursday nights. It's we're more relaxed. It's just kind of informational. Recently, we did it was almost more of a Bible study than a running thing, and then sometimes we have a very specific topic, but Thursday nights are a good place too for you to get questions answered.
Well, it's very interactive. I mean, people can chime in there, and you'll respond and talk to them. So I
try to respond to folks as they comment where it's appropriate, and so it's a lot of fun to do. So tune in and check that out. And then too, we need more stories for this podcast. We share these stories. We're about to share somebody's story, and we need to hear your story. And so go to runforgod.com, go to the bottom of the page, submit your story, and we've made it easy because we've kind of given them a template.
Dean, you know the funny thing about stories?
Everybody's got one.
Everybody's got one.
Everybody's got one.
And I hate to sound like a broken record, but it doesn't matter how vanilla you think yours is, somebody needs to hear it. So please go to runforgod.com, click on submit your story or something like that down at the bottom. We've made it easy. You can go in, we kind of walk you through how to do it. You submit it, and we'll get it, especially if you're a Run Club member. It'll run right to the top of the list, and you may hear it quicker than you think you will. Yeah. So get those submitted.
Yeah, for sure. Well, here's a topic for you that I was thinking about recently. So, we talk about how everything is relative. Mm-hmm. So, what, as it relates to running, what do you consider fast?
Well, I saw that question, and I think the answer is exactly what you just said. It's relative. I remember when I first started running, my big goal was to break 30 minutes. I mean, like for my first 5K or something like that. And then, I remember wanting to break 25, and then I had the big goal of breaking 20, which I did one time years ago. And I thought, man, I've made it. I'm super fast. Well, now, hanging around people like you and Lane, people who can run in the 15s, I don't consider. I still I guess it's the circumstances.
Yeah.
Because if I were to run sub 20 again, I would think, well, I'm smoking fast. But in comparison to my son, I'm the old slow guy. So it's.
And then you take Lane, you compare him to a world-class athlete. He's 2 minutes slower than them.
Sure. Yeah. So it's.
So.
That's why I don't think the conversation about fast versus slow, at least in our community, needs to even be a conversation. Really.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of why I bring it up. And a lot of this stuff, I wrote down.
There's always somebody faster.
That's right. Yeah.
Unless you're, what's his name?
Kipchoge?
No. Cheptegei.
Didn't he have He's got the 5K and 10K records.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So unless you're him, there's always somebody faster.
Yeah. And a lot of it is relative. Like when I'm around, I run on a masters team where we run, everybody there is over 40. Mm-hmm. Well, when we're talking about our group where everybody's over 40, obviously it's different than it was when I was in college.
Sure.
And what we talked about there. So age, fitness level, experience, your size, and then just how serious you want to be about it, I think are things that factor into that. So yeah, I mean, if you've never run before and you're just now running, breaking 30 minutes for a 5K could be really fast.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah.
Yep. So lots of factors. All right. Well, sometimes our attitude about running changes right in the middle of an event.
I think that happens more times than not.
I think it happens regularly. Yes. And this week we have another story from Jerry Snyder. He had a story here just not long ago about running, and his coach was an animal. And this week again, Jerry Snyder from Lancaster, Ohio, shares a story that's called 3 months ago, this sounded like a good idea. It's very hard in the beginning to understand that the whole idea is not to beat the other runners. Eventually, you learn that the competition is against the little voice inside you that wants you to quit. That's from Dr. George Sheehan, runner and author. I celebrated my 65th birthday, and a week later lined up in the early morning darkness with thousands of people on a street in Columbus, Ohio. We were there to take part in a marathon. Fireworks, music, and the roar of spectators started the 26.2-mile race at 7:30 a.m. Running with a pace group, our goal was to finish the course in 4 hours and 30 minutes. The weather was ideal, and the long hours and many miles of preparation had me glowing with confidence. The estimated crowd of 150,000 strung out along the route were about to see a senior citizen glide his way to the finish line with the grace of a ballet dancer. And for 14 miles, the people watching me, I'm sure, were more than pleased with my performance. For months leading up to my birthday, I had been telling everyone within the range of my voice how I was going to celebrate by running in this race. Sounding like Muhammad Ali, I boasted, I'm going to shock the world. I'm going to run 10 minutes faster than the world record. The Army is going to name a bullet after me. They're going to paint my picture on the next rocket to Mars. And they're even going to dig up Ed Sullivan just so I can be on his show. Apparently, my left foot and ankle, which had given me trouble in the past, didn't recall any of my promises. They decided that I had run far enough, and if I was going to finish this race, it would be without their cooperation. Now, my goal for the remaining 12 miles and 385 yards to the finish line would be to win the battle between the voice in my head and the pain shooting up and through my body. The voice was cheering me on, and the other was urging me to hail a taxi. I gimped my way to the next mile marker and then the next, looking back now and then to see if anyone was behind me. What I needed, I found at mile 18. Someone had posted a sign. 3 months ago, this sounded like a good idea. Suddenly, my face remembered how to smile, and now I was back in the race, at least from the neck up. After all, marathons are decided to test our mettle. Recalling some sage advice I had heard long ago from Dr. Norman Vincent Peale, author of The Power of Positive Thinking, it's always too soon to quit. I gimped on. 6 hours, 11 minutes, and 4 seconds after the starting gun, I crossed the finish line. Just wait till next year.
I think Jerry sums up, I would dare to even say, from Kipchoge down, everybody's mentality at some point in a race. Because it really has nothing to do with speed. It has everything to do with the emotional roller coaster that you go through in any event like this.
Yeah.
Especially
a marathon.
A marathon.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never forget the marathon. The race I think about the most when I hear Jerry's story is when I ran the marathon in the Florida Ironman.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like I was on this roller coaster with Jerry. I mean, just up and down. I need to quit. I'm on cloud 9. You're down in the pits again, and this goes on the whole race. So yeah, Jerry just, in classic fashion for Jerry, knocked it out of the park with a lot of humor here. So this was an incredible story.
Well, and I've never heard that quote from Norman Vincent Peale. It's always too soon to quit. I like that quote. That's pretty good, don't you think?
Yeah.
It's funny how it works too in a marathon in particular. Is a lot of times you have like if I'm running like a 10K and my race starts to go south at mile 3, I'm a little grumpy about it, for the rest of the race. When I get through, I'm not in a good mood. And in a marathon, it doesn't matter how bad it goes. by the time you get to 20 miles, 22 miles, 24 miles, all you care about is the finish line, and you're happy to be there. And it doesn't matter what your time is. And
we see these memes all the time. At about mile 20, you're thinking, I will never do this again. And then you cross the finish line and you're like, oh, another race.
Yeah.
It's like, but what we can take a lesson from is, most of our races will do this, especially a marathon, will have these ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. And with very few exceptions, when you cross the finish line, there's no better feeling.
Yeah.
So you were talking Muhammad Ali when you started the race, and there's no better feeling when you finish the race.
But
so it tells you that things really weren't that bad. Right. It was all up here. Mm-hmm. Because if you felt that good at the end, there is a formula, the formula of which nobody's ever figured out, to make that be for the whole race. For the whole race to be that way, because there was really nothing physically taking you out of the race. If you felt that good at the finish line, it's all upstairs.
Yeah.
Now, if we could find a pill or a patch or a shot that could even that line out, man, we would be gazillionaires.
That's a good point. That's a good way to put it, too. How about some scripture here? Proverbs 17:22 says, "A merry heart doeth good like a medicine."
Man, how true that is.
Man, positive attitude means everything, doesn't it?
How many times do we tell the young athletes we've coached when they're running, smile?
It's true. Yeah.
Because that is you've talked about, I think I heard it from you, you've read about it, where that is a chemical reaction that happens in your body. Even if you make yourself smile.
Yep.
A merry heart do good like medicine. Well, it's not just a proverb.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's true. It's
true.
Physically, biologically true. And there's so many people out there, and I'm not talking down about people in general, but so many people they seem determined to be miserable. Mm-hmm. And they need to post this somewhere prominent.
Well, and I need to see it. I mean, because we
all do it. Times.
I can be moody Mandy sometimes, and but And I can be in a bad mood, and I can see somebody smile, and it's contagious.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a yawn.
Yeah.
Have you ever wondered why when you see somebody yawn, it makes you yawn? Maybe we dig into that one day, because that's very fascinating. But a smile is kind of the same way.
It is.
It's hard to be down in the dumps when you're looking at somebody and they're smiling. It's very infectious. It's very contagious.
Yeah, on a personal level, it's why we as Christians, we tend to try to avoid people who are negative and who are not smiling, but it's why it's so important that we don't ignore them. And that we do try to be that. We do try to be that smile that they see that changes the way they feel. Because if you see enough of those, you just can't help it. Right. So I think that's really important. And so many people just, again, the negativity, and as it relates to running, how many times have we seen it? I was just talking with one of my athletes yesterday about how much and what we learned from this year, in her in particular. It's Rebecca Poe. It's the one that was on the podcast here not too long ago. She had that one race where she just really knocked it out of the park, and it was all about her outlook that day.
Demeanor.
Yes, and how she was viewing that race and how she felt and everything else. And so it's so important.
And that's why we talk about, some of these sound like cliches, but they're not. Things like, I don't have to go run, I get to go run.
Yeah.
Well, that is a simple shift in mentality. It's not just a bumper sticker. Mm-hmm. It's, if we can get to the root of some of these cliches, it changes everything. You can either look at a run this afternoon as, I've got to go run. No, you don't.
That's right.
You don't. You can go home and sit on the couch. Mm-hmm. But you get to.
Yeah.
It's going to do you good. It's going to do you good.
Yep.
So go ahead and smile about it and be excited about it. Do like Jerry here and think you're Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
Have a positive attitude, because a lot of times that will result in a positive race, workout, whatever. Now, sometimes, like Jerry, especially in a marathon, you've got to find that inner Muhammad Ali and get it back during the race. But
you got to purposefully do that.
Right, because if you start negative, it's very rare that it's going to turn out positive.
Yeah, that's true.
If you start positive, you may slide into the negative, but you can pull yourself out. But going into I don't know many people who have went into a workout or a race just with a terrible attitude and come out with the result they wanted. Yeah. Now, sometimes that does happen. As I was saying that, I was thinking, well, sometimes that does happen. That's why we say go run no matter how you're feeling.
Right.
Because sometimes you will come out. But more times than not, if you go in positive, you're going to have a positive result. Yeah,
and occasionally it's, one girl on a team, Catherine, her, how positive she is. It doesn't matter. I mean, it can be the most negative thing could be happening, and Catherine's going to find a silver lining in it. But every once in a while, she gets through with a race and she goes, I didn't do a good job in that race. Mm-hmm. She's facing that reality. So it's okay.
Yeah.
But she never dwells on it. And she's a good example. Mark 9:23 says, if you believe, all things are possible. And that's, of course, that comes with a caveat. Mm-hmm. It's not. It doesn't mean I'm not gonna win the Olympic marathon anytime soon. I don't think. At my age, it's probably not going to happen. But all things that are God's will are possible.
Yeah, if you believe this is where God has you, this is what God wants you to do, and you feel like God is nudging you to go forward, then whatever it is absolutely possible.
Yeah.
As much as you think it's not.
Yep.
So many examples out there of that where we tend to put God in a box. God, what you're telling me to do is not possible because I've never done that. I can't do that. I'm not able. I'm not strong enough. I'm not fat. Whatever it is, you're right when you say that. It's not possible with us. But God's not asking us to do it. He's asking us to do it with Him, and therefore it is possible.
Yeah. In the context of this story and talking about this race and the negative thoughts that run through your head in the middle of a race, and Is it hard in the middle of a marathon when things are hard and your body's not cooperating and you feel like it's a chore just to get the next foot in front? Yeah, it's hard. I think about Todd Shoemaker and his story, and that next step is absolutely nothing in comparison to that. And yet, what a great example of just keeping that positive attitude. You know, you can't run for 9 years and you go out and buy a new pair of running shoes every year anyway, because you're convinced God's got a plan. He's going to fix this thing, and I'm going to use those running shoes. I mean, just that's the way we're to be.
And Todd heard that clearly from the Lord.
Yeah.
But many of us would have, when we were prompted to go out and buy that new pair of running shoes to sit beside the ones from last year that we didn't use, human nature was eventually start to take over and think, well, God is sitting in the cards for me.
Yeah.
But Todd kept doing it with the expectancy, because, I mean, God's word is clear. Pray with the expectation that what you're asking to do in God's will happen.
Yeah.
Because if you're not, what does it say? It says you're like a person in the sea being tossed to and fro.
Yeah.
You don't know what to believe. Believe in what you know that God's telling you, and it not only will it happen, but it keeps you focused on what's important. I mean, the whole scripture about being tossed to and fro is because we start to believe this, and we hear God saying this, but we believe what we saw on a commercial here. We see what we read on Google here, and we're just back and forth, and we never have, we had a meeting the other day about a training plan, and that was my whole thing was we need to find a true north arrow.
Yep.
It may be a little bit off
one
side or the other, but you got to find a true north, and you got to go.
Yeah.
Because if you listen to this person and then you read this and you watch this, and it's never going to happen. It's what we always say about training plans.
Yeah.
There's probably thousands of training plans that will get you to a marathon. Pick one and go.
And go with it.
Because if you try to take a little bit here and a little bit there and a little bit here, chances are you're not going to make it.
Yep.
You might make it, but you're not going to make it with the result that you wanted.
That's true. Psalm 31:24 says, "Be strong and take heart, all you who hope in the Lord." That's a tough one these days, isn't it? Just because we look around us in the world and he's talking about a marathon and running a marathon and the negativity that can kind of run through and ramble in your brain during that time. But think about life right now. We think about gas prices are so high and food prices, and bless their hearts, these mothers who can't find formula for their babies.
Crazy.
I mean, it's a big deal, right? Yeah. And there's a lot to look at out in the world and be discouraged about. But this scripture is so important because he's telling us that, yeah, there are some bad things out there, but when you have your hope in God, you don't have to drag yourself down from those things, and all those positive things that we've been talking about are possible when we look at it that way. I think we know the end of the story. And
Dean, I have a friend. We're talking about, because there's so much to weigh us down right now. You mentioned gas prices and food prices, and there's nothing political about this. I mean, people are struggling right now.
Yeah.
And you start to think, woe is me. Well, I've got a friend who just, a really good friend of mine, he was like a father growing up, and he had a stroke 2 weeks ago. And I went to see him a few days ago. I mean, Dean, this guy's strong. He's capable, smart business guy. Had everything going for him. And I went and saw him, and I was blown away. He was laying in the bed. He can't talk. He can talk. He knows what he wants to say. He can hear what he's saying, but he can't. The words don't make sense. And I've never seen that. I don't guess I've really known anybody that's had a stroke like that. Maybe you have. Yeah. But he couldn't. And I thought, it kind of puts things in perspective for you, that the political landscape, what's going on in the world, the price of a steak that we're complaining about, or the price of gas at the pump, none of that matters to him.
Yeah.
None of it matters to him.
Yeah.
And it really puts things into focus that, our hope, and I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here, our hope does not need to be in a political party. It doesn't need to be in a candidate. It doesn't need to be in gas prices, food prices, where we can
running for that matter.
Or running. Yeah. These are all things that God blesses us with.
Mm-hmm.
What we need to focus on is our relationship with Jesus Christ, because we, like we talk about before every race, do you know that if you go out here on this race course and you get hit by a car and the Lord takes you off of this earth, do you know where you're going?
Yeah.
And that's the only thing that matters. We have an awesome time talking with these podcasts and batting these stories around, but I just want to challenge everybody out there listening because of my friend Gerald. So if you're out there and you want to pray for somebody, pray for a gentleman by the name of Gerald Weaver. Do you know that if the Lord takes you off this earth today, where you're going to go? I hope you do, but if you have questions at all, go to runforgod.com/peace with God. 3 simple videos there to watch. You listen to Billy Graham doing what Billy Graham does best, and that's pointing people to the foot of the cross. But I just felt the need to kind of share that, because there is so much out there in our world today that just seems to be just pulling us down and tries to get us to focus on every news channel. It don't matter which one.
Yeah.
They're trying to get us to focus on the gloom and doom of what's going on this earth. But we have the greatest gift.
Yeah.
We have the gift that should make us smile, like we talked about.
Yeah.
No matter what's going on around us. If we've got a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, what's going on right now is a blink of an eye.
Yeah, think about when you get a new car. It's really exciting when you get a new car, and every day you want to go to the front window and look out the look at your car.
And you want to wash it.
You just want to really, it's a special feeling.
Yeah.
And the other things that are going on around your life, they're just not as important as they were prior to the new car. And the truth is we're getting a new car every day.
Every day.
I mean, that's a
good analogy, Dean.
Yeah.
Because I know how I am with a new vehicle. Got to wash it every day.
What do you mean a new vehicle?
Yeah.
You're with that with every vehicle.
Well, you got to take care of stuff,
That's
Dean.
true. That's true.
You're getting better at
I was going to say, you've gotten me into a habit now, I think. Yeah.
You're learning.
It's all perspective. I think about the idea about when, I had run every day for 5.5 years, and then I forgot to run one day. I've told the story before. And I could have been really upset about it. I could have been really mad at myself about it. I could have been down in the dumps about it. But instead, God really prompted me to ask the question, why did this happen? Mm-hmm. And when I got that answer back from God, it was a negative thing. Oh my gosh, you're such a moron. You forgot to run. You've been running every day for 5.5 years, and you've ruined this streak. You've completely ruined this streak.
You might as well just quit running.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people would do that, would look at it that way. And instead, God gave me something that I felt like I was glad I missed that day of running at that point. I was like, how crazy is it to go from being devastated to just being joyful about it? And we can do that with almost anything in life if we'll look for God's answer.
That's what God does. That's the whole testing process. God tests, the devil tempts. We've talked about that. But in testing our faith, there's always a great outcome. You could have failed that test and you could have sulked for 2 weeks about that. But you passed the test, and what that did for you was it cemented even more in your life where God falls. And that is above running. I think he lets you miss that day 5.5 years into it for a reason.
Yeah. I think so too. Question: what do you say to yourself when your plan is not working? I kind of gave that away as I asked the question, didn't I? When your plan is not working.
My plan's not working. That's usually what I say.
Yeah.
This ain't working.
Yeah. Well, and the right thing to do, I think, is to fall back and go, okay, well, if my plan's not working, God, what should I be doing differently? What is God's plan rather than what is my plan? But what do we normally do instead? We just bear down a little bit harder on our plan. You know, it's, gosh, it just, we're so bad about it. We're so bad about going down that trail and then just going even harder when things don't go right. And it gets a little frustrating sometimes. It's kind of like, you know, eventually we get to that same place we do in a marathon, though. Eventually we get so far down that trail that now it's like, I just need to get out of this, whatever it takes. And that's where we seem to rely on God. When the race is, you know, like Jerry here, when he saw that sign at 18 miles that made him change his perspective on what he was doing, that was God interrupting or banging our head against a wall and saying, everything's going to be fine if you'll just follow the trail that I have for you. Take a left up there at the next trail and you're going to be fine.
I don't know why this is coming to mind, but it's a word picture. But I used to be on a hunting club down in South Georgia, and I'll never forget one day I was trying to go to a certain part of the property, and there's a trail that goes all the way around to get to where I was wanting to go. But I wanted to go straight to it. Well, between a straight line from me to where I was wanting to go was a briar thicket. And I was on a foiler, and I thought, you know, it's foiler, just kind of mow those briars down. And it's one of those things where it's not that bad. You're getting pricked here and there. Well, what happens with briar thickets is the further you go into them, the thicker they get. And I was driving, and you start getting caught by briars, and it gets thicker and thicker and thicker. And before you know it, I got through, but I was absolutely chewed up. And if I would have just spent literally 5 minutes to take the long way around, but that's such a picture for how we usually do with God. We're trying to go where God is wanting us to go, but we're kind of like arguing with the GPS.
Yeah,
I know better than this. And we go right through the briar thicket, and we may get there. We may not. We may get hung up in the briars and have to turn around and do it ultimately God's way. But we may get through. But we're beaten up, broken down, got briars hanging all over us, bloody. For what?
What a great analogy.
Because we wanted to do it my way. And the thing is, most of the time, we know that there's that other path. It's not that we don't know about it. But we think, God's not thinking about this. I know this shortcut.
Yeah, that's true.
That's Mitchell a lot of times.
Yeah. The bottom line is, when our plan is not working, it's probably because it's our plan and not God's plan.
It's our path.
Yeah. Another question. When has humor helped you navigate a painful situation? I remember one time when I was at one of my best friends, I was at his funeral for his mother. And we were telling jokes in the funeral home. Mm-hmm. And somebody actually came to us and said, they were basically looking at us like, you guys need to keep it down, you know. And somebody even, I don't remember who it was, somebody said to me, do you think that's appropriate? And, you know, at some point in time, I got to feeling guilty about it. And I thought, that's probably not appropriate to be. And, you know, here's a guy that just lost his mother, and here I am making jokes and that kind of thing. And I really felt bad about it. But I never said anything to him about it afterwards. I just felt guilty. And then a couple of months later, he came to me and he said, and I don't remember how it came up in conversation, but he basically said, that was the best thing for me that day. I needed to laugh that day. And I think we sometimes think it's inappropriate, I think, to laugh sometimes, when it's almost never inappropriate to have some fun and to have a little levity and just to have a good time. Think about the comedians. You know, there's some Christian comedians out there. You got Tim Hawkins is the first one that comes to mind. He's hilarious, but he's got a biblical message in his comedy. And, you know, and the truth is, that's Tim Hawkins. He has this gift for being funny, and he shares it. He's sharing, wrong with that. He's sharing his talent. Yeah. Just like I'm trying to share my talent of running. Sure. And it's I think that laughter is such a great thing and gets us through so much.
Well, we just talked about it.
Yeah.
A smile
Yeah.
is a chemical reaction. It will pull you out of the dumps.
Yeah.
But sometimes we got to be intentional about it.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah.
So,
last question. When in trouble, what steps can you take to clearly hear the voice of God?
sometimes it's just stopping and turning around.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. Because most of the time we're walking in the wrong direction.
We're plowing through that briar thicket.
Yeah.
And sometimes just stop and turn around. You see the path. You know the path around. Most of the time we know it. Most of the time it's not ignorance. It's many times when we're outside the will of God, we're not caught off guard. If you're really being honest, I'm thinking about all the situations where I've been outside God's will and I'm not, doing the things I'm supposed to be doing or being obedient like I'm supposed to be. I know it.
Yeah.
It's not an ignorance thing. It's a choice. And sometimes you got to choose just to stop and turn around and say, God, I messed up. Help me get back here.
Yeah. And the truth is while you were headed down that path into that briar thicket, if you would have stopped and turned around, God was probably standing behind you pointing. Mm-hmm. No, this is the way here. Well,
I definitely know my friend was.
Yeah.
Who was back there saying, that didn't work out too good, did it? But yeah, I mean, that's the meaning of repentance. It's to turn around.
Yeah.
And it's not take a different path through the briar thicket, which we'll try to do sometimes. Like, oh, that one's not working. Let me go this way. Repent is to turn away.
Yeah. To
turn away from that briar thicket and go back to where God is, where He's saying, look, it's a nice gravel trail around this way.
Yeah.
And like I said, so many times it's not ignorance. It's choice. It's choices.
Yeah. I think about, I used to be a baseball coach. And when I was coaching baseball, one of the things that I noticed was when our team started playing sloppy, mm-hmm. very next practice, the first thing we did was we went back to talking about basics mm-hmm. and doing the basics. And because that's typically what leads to playing sloppy baseball, is not taking care of the fundamentals, as we call them. I think it's that way in our life, in our relationship with Christ. It's basics. It's prayer. It's Bible study. It's really simple, just like, the basics of keeping your glove on the ground when you're fielding a ground ball mm-hmm. is just a basic, but you got to remind yourself of that often to make sure that you don't pick up bad habits. And
yeah, I mean, it's like, I think we talked about it just here a while back. It's kind of like running. I think you used the example of, to get faster, it's really as simple as run slow some, run fast some, and run often. And to complicate it more than that is okay, but so many times we complicate scripture so much that we just get confused and frustrated and we walk away. Sometimes we complicate a training plan so much that there again we're listening to so many inputs and it gets confusing and it becomes ineffective. Sometimes it's just read your Bible every day and talk to God.
Yeah.
If you just do those two things, you're going to have an incredible relationship with Christ. But so many times we complicate that process when we just need to go back, like you said, to the fundamentals.
Yep.
At Run for God, we care about more than just your exercise. We care about your relationship with God, and we believe that the music you listen to while you run can help build your relationship with God. That's why we partnered with J Radio. J Radio offers a variety of positive and Christian playlists that you can listen to while you run. You can find a playlist that is put together by Run Club members just like you and the Run for God station at J Radio. All right, so we're back, and Dean, last week we talked a little bit about iron and ferritin, and we kind of just brushed over it, and I thought it would be a good idea to this week just kind of go through a blog that I wrote several years mm-hmm. back when you and I both were trying to figure out an issue with an athlete, actually my son Lane. And so I'm going to read this and we'll just kind of kick it around for a few minutes after. But I think I've forwarded this on to quite a few people since I wrote it, and it really opened some people's eyes to the issue of iron. And the name of the blog, I think, was The Thing About Iron. And so here we go. Hey everyone, Mitchell Hollis here with Run for God. I want to start this blog off by making a few statements. First, I'm not a medical doctor, nor any other kind of doctor. I've never been to medical school, and I do not claim to know much about the human body. This blog is not meant to diagnose anyone of anything, but rather tell you my experience. Should you need medical advice, please contact your physician. Now that all the disclaimers are out of the way, let me tell you about why I'm writing a blog on the subject of iron and ferritin. I have a 14-year-old son named Lane Hollis. Lane, in many ways, is your typical freshman high schooler. He attends public school, makes good grades, plays the guitar, and loves hanging out with his friends. But there's one thing that is not so typical about Lane. He's a very focused, nationally ranked triathlete who trains 15 to 20 hours a week and has some pretty lofty long-term goals. He runs a mid-17 5K, and his current PR in the mile is 4:56. He's also experiencing that dramatic change every young man experiences when their voice changes and they seem to grow 6 inches overnight. With this background, let me explain what happened. On September 1st of this year, I showed up to Lane's cross-country practice just like any other day. As Lane walked into the area where we all met for practice, I could tell that something was wrong. He walked up to me and said he did not feel good. Now let me stop right there and say Lane is almost never sick. He never complains, and he's always ready for a good practice. So when he told me he didn't feel good, there was no question at all that something was wrong. We immediately left the practice and walked into our local family physician to get him checked out. Lane was pale, weak, and fell asleep in the waiting room. My first thought was the flu or some other random bug that kids pick up this time of year. After a few minutes, we were able to see the doctor, and after she checked his temperature, we found that he had a 101.9 fever. That would explain why he felt sick, though that would explain why he felt as though a truck had hit him but what caused the fever? After she checked for the flu, strep throat, and ran a urine sample, she came back into the room somewhat puzzled. Everything came back negative. He didn't have any of those things. She indicated that he might just be fighting off something and that he had had for a few days. Sure enough, by Sunday, he was back to what seemed like normal, at least until he showed up for cross-country practice on Monday. On Monday, following his fever, Lane showed up to cross-country ready to go. Lane came into the season as one of the top runners as a freshman and was ready to start the season off right. As soon as Lane started running his warm-up, he knew there was something wrong. He couldn't get his legs to work. He said he felt fine, nothing hurt, but he was having a hard time even holding just an 8:30 pace. Lane's slow zone at the time was 7 to 7:30. He finished practice frustrated but not too worried. We assumed that the fever he had on Friday must have taken more out of him than we thought. Tuesday and Wednesday was the same story, and it was Wednesday afternoon when we realized we needed to head back to the doctor. I made an appointment for Thursday afternoon and let his coach know that he would not be at practice. On Thursday, I picked Lane up from school, and once again, he stated that he felt great. By this point, I'm thinking that something else is going on, and the fever may have just been a coincidence. As we met once again with the doctor, I asked if we could get some blood work to see if there was any kind of imbalance. I had read about athletes, especially female athletes, who had performance problems due to low iron. Right away, he sent Lane back to the lab for a CBC, a complete blood count. The doctor told me that he'd give me a call later that afternoon with the results. This is it. I just knew this was going to be the problem. I got a call later that afternoon, but it wasn't the call I was hoping for. Everything was normal. It's strange to say that I was disappointed with a normal result, but we knew something was wrong, and once again we had hit a dead end. On Friday and Saturday, Lane's run only seemed to get worse. You could tell by looking at him run that something was very wrong. He almost seemed uncoordinated, and it looked as though he had trouble just putting one foot in front of the other. On Monday, his cross-country coach, a great friend and coworker, and I were talking about what might be going on. We'd been to the doctor twice, and everything was normal. Maybe it's just that he's going through a growth spurt. Lane had grown a couple of inches in a short period of time. I've coached triathletes for many years now, and I've seen the side effects that growing can have on kids. Their body awareness gets out of whack, and they're just not aware of how tall they are getting, which can spell big trouble when it comes to running efficiently. That must be it. So I went with it. For the next 2 weeks, we backed Lane's volume down and had him do other workouts with the rest of the team while the rest of the team was doing speed. High intensity and growing quickly in many cases can lead to injuries, and we just wanted to get Lane through this. Asking Lane to run less than everyone and not run hard is like asking a basketball player not to dribble the ball. It just didn't make sense, and if it did, he was not happy about it. One day at cross-country practice, almost a month since he had had his fever, I could see that this was getting to Lane. He was upset, which in turn made me upset. Something just didn't feel right. He had grown, but not that much. And if it was a growth spurt that was leading to the coordination issues, then why were we not seeing it anywhere else? If it's that bad, then it should be at least a little bit noticeable just walking around while not exercising. It wasn't. That evening, I got on the phone with a coaching friend of mine out of Des Moines, Iowa, Jenny Weber. Jenny is a high-performance triathlon coach and the head coach of Z3, which is the high-performance team that Lane was a member of. I began to tell her about what was going on with Lane. She listened and said, "It's his ferritin." There was no hesitation. I knew ferritin had to do something with iron, and I told her that his CBC, which does check for iron, came back normal. Jenny calmly assured me that a CBC does check hemoglobin, which is the iron-containing protein in the blood that carries iron and oxygen to cells, but it does not check for ferritin, which indicates the amount of iron stored in the body, almost like your iron reserve tank. It all made sense, but I still wasn't getting my hopes up. That night I read article after article about this very thing and how low ferritin would affect athletes in exactly the same way that it was affecting Lane. But why didn't anyone tell us this? Why didn't anyone explain the difference between hemoglobin and ferritin? Why did the doctors miss this? Because while this condition is very common in young endurance athletes, some estimates are as high as 40%, it is very uncommon with the average active young person. The average active young person is not training at the volume and intensity as Lane and many of his peers are. This is exactly why someone who coaches athletes such as Lane was able to quickly point this out when doctors didn't. Needless to say, Lane was happy to get his blood drawn once again the next morning for a specific ferritin test. Unfortunately, we could not get the results until Friday, and this was only Wednesday. For the next 2 days, we were on pins and needles. We stuck to our plan of low volume, low intensity, and as much as I wanted to go ahead and get him on an iron supplement, I didn't. Friday the call came, and it was the news we wanted. Lane's ferritin was extremely low. What a relief. Crazy, right? I've never been so excited to hear that something was wrong with one of my children. It was because we had an answer. We knew what the problem was, and now we could get to work to fix it. The normal range for ferritin in a young athlete such as Lane is 70 to 300. Lane's was 11. That Friday afternoon, Lane skipped cross country to get a crash course on how to manage your iron naturally, as well as to find a supplement regimen for his iron deficiency. We decided on 65 milligrams of iron with vitamin C twice a day until his levels were back to normal. So what caused the fever a month ago? Well, we're not real sure, but I've read that in some cases, low ferritin can lead to infection, which would explain the fever. So what caused the low ferritin? Again, I'm not sure, but I assume that when you couple the fact that Lane trains year-rounds with the fact that he's growing like a weed, deficiencies are going to occur. There are still some questions that may never be answered, but there's one thing for sure. The solution worked. Lane took a supplement on Friday, 2 on Saturday, and raced the final triathlon of his season on Sunday. He was back to the old Lane, claiming second overall against a strong field of athletes 2 and 3 times his age. One thing I found during this 4 weeks of not knowing what was going on with my child is that answers were hard to find. Reading clinical studies, visiting the doctors 3 different times, and conducting trial and error experiments that only led to dead ends was not the easiest route. I only wish I had read Lane's story that someone else had written from the very start. My hope is that this story will find its way to those who are searching for the same answers as me. Dean, that was what we said, 14. Lane's 19 now, so that was 5 years ago. Lane still takes iron supplements.
Yeah.
He came off of them one time and his ferritin dipped back down. Mm-hmm. So what we've learned, at least for Lane, for some people with a high training volume, and I talked about young people in here, but this is also pretty common for adults.
It is, yeah.
Especially females. Mm-hmm. Some people need to stay on this. Now, obviously, you need to talk to your doctor. Don't go out and buy iron supplements because too much iron can be an issue too.
Yes.
It can be a serious issue. So.
And there are some people who their body actually stores too much iron.
Sure. And
iron supplements could kill them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that serious.
Yeah.
The stuff that I read says never take an iron supplement before you get your ferritin levels checked.
Right.
And make sure that you're okay. Yeah, and I've seen this with other athletes besides Lane. We had one girl whose ferritin was 2.
Yeah.
And I look back on that time watching that girl run and watching her pour her heart into trying to run and watching her fold over, just like Lane did, just like we saw for Lane. And she started taking an iron supplement and it didn't work. Mm-hmm. And then she continued to take that iron supplement. Eventually, she had to get blood transfusions for it to work. And so sometimes just supplementation doesn't work. But from everything that I read, 90% of the time, supplementation works. Yeah. Just go out and get now. I'm sure you talked about here taking it with vitamin C is very important, and taking it not with calcium. Calcium is important.
So if you take iron and you wash it down with milk, you've basically negated it.
Yeah.
Because calcium blocks the absorption. Vitamin C encourages the absorption.
Yeah.
So we want to take it with orange juice, or Lane takes a brand that has vitamin C in it.
Yeah.
With it. But there's a lot to learn, but just knowing this, I think there's a lot of people out there, because what you see, or what many people would have thought was, Lane's just not in shape, or Lane's just not working hard, or whatever. So luckily we knew his work ethic then, and we knew, okay, there's something really wrong with him, which is what prompted us to really start digging. But, I talked to Jenny. She's coached a lot of young female athletes, and that's why she said it just very confidently. But I mean, some doctors will argue with you on because ferritin is not something they check in a standard CBC, complete blood count. It's a separate test, and some doctors will argue with you. Our doctor kind of pushed back on it. He didn't argue, but he kind of pushed back like, no, that's mainly females and things like that, because, the menstrual cycle with losing blood, that's what will cause ferritin to drop many times. But for a lot of people, it's just that they lose it some other way. I don't really know what those ways are, but
part of it, they feel like part of it is the actual exercise itself.
Yeah,
that uses up that extra oxygen by carrying iron. What iron does is it gets oxygen to your muscles.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't get oxygen to your muscles, then you can't produce the energy your muscles need to work. And so it's critical. It's needed. It's not just that the more the better. It's you have to have it.
And I said last week that a CBC will check for hemoglobin. So that's the crude way of explaining hemoglobin and iron that has best helped me to understand is hemoglobin is like your gas tank. It's your day-to-day activities. That's where your hemoglobin is. And this is, Lane had plenty of hemoglobin, which is why he didn't feel bad during the day, just out doing normal things. It wasn't until he started exercising at high intensity is when he really crumbled. Well, Ferritin, if you ever had an old motorcycle, they had a gas tank, and then below it they had a reserve tank, and you could flip a switch and tap into that reserve tank. Well, that's what Ferritin is. It's that lower reserve tank that when you use up that hemoglobin, and that may not be the best way to describe it, but when you go through your normal daily at school for him, whatever you're doing of the day, and then you need to tap into some reserves to get you through a workout, that's where the problem is. It's because that Ferritin, it's not there.
Yeah.
He had 2 and it was supposed to be 70, and that's why he would crumble during workouts. But when he got recovered and went back to his daily life, he felt fine. So if you're out there and you're dealing with, just maybe low energy through the day, maybe you need to get your hemoglobin checked, your iron checked.
Yeah.
But if it really rears its head during an activity and you can really feel a difference, then maybe you need to get your ferritin checked. That would be somewhere. Like I said, I've sent this article to several people, and I've gotten messages back saying that was absolutely it. A young girl that we both know, one of the Mashburn girls. Yeah. Her mom, they were about to get her checked for some pretty major things, and I saw it on Facebook that she was passing out during swim meets, and I said, Mindy, I may be out of line here, but I sent her this article, and like 2 weeks later, she emailed me back just thanking me because it was something as simple as this. Yeah. But the daughter was just completely. She had nothing there, and she's a very capable swimmer. She's a very good swimmer.
I know for a lot of people, it's frustrating that doctors don't know this. That you would think this would be something all doctors would know about, but you got to understand this is very specific to endurance athletes, because if you're in a boat like Lane was, where his hemoglobin is okay, if you're just doing normal everyday activity, you're not even going to notice a difference. Right. It's only when you do the endurance activities that it happens. When you're needing that reserve tank. Yeah. And
most people don't need to tap into their ferritin. Right. They don't. Even moderate people who exercise moderately, you never really get down. But I mean, some of these younger athletes, they're really dipping down and need those reserves. And it's varying degrees. You could be a middle-aged lady who you start to run, and maybe you're dipping down into it. So we're not saying this is just for young, high-octane athletes. That's just the ones that we were talking about. But maybe you're out there and you're just struggling to get out and do the 5K challenge. Some of that may be the shape you're in, and you need to work that out. But if you feel like it's something chronic and it's not getting better, it doesn't hurt to go. I mean, I think to go to the lab down the road here to get Lane's ferritin checked, I think we paid $35. Yeah. It's a small price to pay, just so you know.
And you mentioned 40%. That's about the percentage of endurance athletes specifically with girls. Mm-hmm. It's 40 to 50%. Yeah. And the percentage at the beginning of a cross-country season, for example, is lower than it is at the end of a cross-country season, because as they do more, it gets worse. Boys are only 3%. Lane was an unusual case. It's not often that it's guys, but it can be.
It's 3%, but I do know another boy who I sent this article to his mom, Aiden Landrum. It was the same thing. So I know two guys who went through this. But females. Well, I think you had your cross country team checked one time, and there was a large.
And it was about half of them. That were low. Yep. Yeah. 100. Yep. And it seems like from my experience and what I've seen, that the ideal level is different for different athletes. I've seen some athletes that it doesn't seem to matter. I've seen some that have a ferritin level of, say, 20, and that's low for an endurance athlete, but it doesn't seem to make any difference for them. They take an iron supplement, doesn't seem to make any difference. But I've seen others that are like that, and it affects them greatly.
Well, and you got to couple it with your diet.
Yeah.
The red meats, the beans, the greens, all those things are high in iron, and compound that with if you are a person like you're kind of doing the vegan thing, you better be educated on how to get your iron in naturally, because there's no better way to get it than naturally. Sometimes you do need a supplement, but even a supplement won't work if you're not coupled it with getting things naturally in your diet. So if you get yours checked and you're low, really dig in and learn. It's a good thing to learn anyway, but especially if you're feeling like this is you.
Well, and you got to be careful too that a lot of people are anti taking any kind of pills.
Yeah.
And so they feel like I need to have the diet that, and I get that, and you can eat, but for some people, you can have the best diet in the world. You can eat all the red meat that you need, and you can get in all the heme iron that you can get in, and still be low.
Well, Lane takes 130 milligrams a day of iron. You're going to be hard to do that with a diet. Yeah,
that's right.
You just
exactly,
and that's on top. Lane is a red meat eater. He's he really eats good. Yeah, and he still has to have that. So
the studies I have seen have said that if your iron level is low, then you should supplement with up to 180 milligrams a day of iron in order to get back to where you need to be.
Yeah.
So
just thought you should know.
Yeah. Do you struggle with motivation to exercise? Are you looking for something that will challenge you and inspire and motivate you? The Run for God Run Club is just what you need to get off the couch and on your way to a fitter, healthier you. Stop trying to get into better shape and do it. With the help and inspiration of thousands of others who are going through the same challenges you face. Whether you're participating in the Couch to Marathon Challenge or just looking for a daily pick-me-up to get active, join the Run for God Run Club today. You can join for as little as 27 cents a day. So what are you waiting for? Get started today at www.runforgod.com. All right, we're back. And so just a conclusion to what we just talked about. We talked about all this, the iron and the ferritin and hemoglobin and stuff. Here's just some points that I think are important. First of all, low ferritin is extremely common in runners, in endurance athletes, that affects 2 to 17% of male runners and 28 to 45% of female runners. That's according to different studies. An even higher proportion have iron levels that are low enough to impair performance but do not fall outside standard reference ranges for the general population. Low ferritin, even in the absence of low hemoglobin, can cause problems, which was Lane's problem. Because if you have low, if your iron is low, if your hemoglobin is low, then you're called anemic. That's the word for it. If your hemoglobin is okay and your ferritin is low, then you're iron deficient is what they call it. So even if you're iron deficient, it can cause a serious problem. Because
it's not, I use the illustration of a gas tank and a reserve tank. It's not like that, because on the old motorcycles, when you fill up the gas tank, it fills up the reserve tank and then fills up the gas tank. With iron, it's two separate buckets. So just because your hemoglobin may be okay doesn't mean your ferritin is okay. Right. So it's kind of two separate things. Yeah. Even though it's all iron, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sort of like it fills it up in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If you have low ferritin, a high iron diet can help, but the best course of action is to take an iron supplement. Taking a ferrous sulfate supplement at a dose of 120 to 200 milligrams of elemental iron per day is a good starting place. Now, you have to be careful with this, because there are some people, and I had an athlete who was low in iron, very low in iron, and she had to take a supplement. Well, the supplement bothered her gastrointestinally, and so she had stomach issues with it. So she couldn't just take regular old iron, the stuff that Lane takes. She couldn't take it. We had to give her liquid iron. in order, and the liquid iron worked for her.
Yeah.
So you got to play around with it a little bit if you have some trouble with it. Take your iron supplement on an empty stomach with 100 to 250 milligrams of vitamin C. Small doses can be hard to find, so use a pill splitter to cut up larger vitamin C supplements. The other thing, too, that we didn't mention was if you're trying to get your iron from a multivitamin, it's a complete waste of time. Now, I'm not saying multivitamins are a waste of time, but if that's where if that's the only place you're getting your iron from, and you know you need iron, that's not the way to do it, because
some multivitamins will have iron and calcium in the same pill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't work.
Yeah. So this is a specific need, and you need the absorption rate to be highest as possible.
Yep. Avoid taking your iron supplement within a few hours of anything that can impair iron absorption, like tea, calcium-rich foods, or supplements, or antacids are another thing that can cause trouble. So it's taken best when it works best when it's taken on an empty stomach. And then it says, do not take an iron supplement or adopt a high iron diet without getting a ferritin test first. So see your doctor, figure out a way to get tested, and know that you need it before you start taking it.
And like I said, you don't have to go to the doctor. You don't have to go pay a doctor's fee and all that. You can go. There are many labs out there that you can call. I didn't know about these labs until Lane, because I got tired of paying the doctor's visit and all that.
Yeah.
So you can just call some of these labs, and like I said, we pay like $35 now to get, because we get his checked a few times a year.
Yeah.
Just to make sure we're staying on top of it and we're not giving him too much, because I kind of thought he would be off the supplements by now, but he's not. So, and it doesn't hurt to keep taking them. You just need to keep tabs on it.
And the upper limit for iron is way up there.
Yeah, it's a lot before you get toxic.
Yeah, it is. It is. All right. How about a trivia question for this week? So here's the trivia question. We may have asked this one before, but I like to talk about this guy. So, what was the name of the messenger who delivered the message of the Athenian victory over the Persians in 490 BC?
This is 2 in a row, I know.
And then,
Wow.
Look, I don't know what we're going to do for a bonus. At least a good.
I know what the message
at
was
least
too.
a good pat on the back. Yeah. If you tell me what the message was, what was the word that he said as his message? And if you know that, you're a superstar. So
We'll give you a virtual high five.
Virtual high five, yeah.
But if you get the question right, we'll give you a Run for God tumbler.
That's right.
But you got to send the message to dean@runforgod.com, not Facebook Messenger, not customer service. dean@runforgod.com. First one with the right answer will get a Run for God coffee tumbler.
Yeah. All right. Every week I share a reason why running is so awesome. And this week, this is my reason. It helps both physically and mentally. So there's a lot of ways to exercise, and a lot of them, most of them help you either physically or mentally, and running does both. Mm-hmm. And I think running is about as efficient as anything at both of those things. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think running is so awesome. You see triathletes, a lot of times the best triathletes are ones who are good runners. And why is that? I think, my opinion, is because mentally, I think that good runners are mentally tougher than people who are good in other sports. So I think running helps you mentally. You agree with that or no? Not necessarily.
I don't know.
Yeah. So something to think about.
Well, I mean, it depends on which triathlons, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
Short course, yeah.
Yeah.
Long course,
it's a little bit.
You better be a good biker.
That's true. That is true. Yep.
Yeah.
Our motivational thought of the week comes from Robert Collier, who is an author around the turn of the 20th century. He said, "Success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out."
Consistency's key.
Yep. We've said it a million times, right? Yep. All right.
Good job, Dean.
All right.
Another week down.
Another week.
113 episodes down.
That's right.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
I'm having fun.
I am too. And we hope you're having fun as well. And so get out there, get on the road, the trail, the path, wherever you choose to run. Talk to God a little bit while you're out there, and have fun with it, and get yourself into some good shape. and come back next week to join us again. Now may God bless every step of every run. Go out there and shine your light.
Good job, Dean.
For more information about the Run for God ministry, go to runforgod.com. If you have questions about your salvation, click on the Peace with God tab. There's nothing more important. Thanks for joining us today.